Leanne, talk us through the session so far today, down about 14 points. What do you make of it?
Ingrid, look, we certainly are continuing on from those negative leads that we received from US and European markets overnight. So no surprises that we are seeing our market being hit today, as you say, down about 1/4%. Having a look at some of the best performers being that property space as well as staples, and that really is being led by Treasury Wine Estates, as we know. And of course, telecommunications is also one of the better performers. The worst performers, however, being that IT space, energy as well as healthcare. Looking at that financial sector, that is also coming under a bit of pressure. We did see some of those financial stocks getting hit quite hard over in the US and Europe, so financials down about 0.4%. And looking at that consumer discretionary space, down about 0.5%. That in fact is still coming under a bit of pressure, but we did see that retail sales data coming through, which was in fact better than expected, and as a result we are seeing some of those retailers performing quite well. Pacific Brands, Maya, JB Hi-Fi and Kathmandu all trading quite well and in green. So nice to see that we have seen a bit of an uptick in some of those stocks following that retail sales data, but as expected, still continuing these very low volumes. I do suspect investors are still sitting on the sidelines ahead of our reporting season, which is due to get underway this week.
Okay, let's talk Western Areas. It's up about 0.8% today after increasing resource at Flying Fox. Can you take us through it?
Sure, so we are seeing a pretty positive performance today. Of course, they have increased that resource by about 7,500 tonnes at a grade of about 6.5%, really indicating the quality of the grade of their ore there. So certainly positive. Looking at the revenue side of things, that this upgrade is in fact going to add another $100 million at today's nickel prices in terms of those revenues. So certainly does look pretty positive. And one other thing that came out of today's announcement is in fact that they are doing some remodelling, and they have in fact generated some further exploration targets, and of course that is potentially going to add to some of their reserves as well. So really indicating that the company is focusing on some of these new nickel discoveries. The stock has been a very strong performer, up at about 108% since the start of the year, and today's announcement of course doesn't come soon after we received that very strong production report from them recently, so all certainly adding to a lot of this strength and seeing a strong performance today as well.
So do you see more upside then going forward, Leanne?
We do see more upside, Ingrid. We certainly like the outlook on this stock. We really know that this company is focused on sort of low-cost nickel production, new nickel discoveries as well, just as we are seeing out of today's announcement, and of course, you know, continuing to generate returns for shareholders as well. We do expect that some of these supply risks will persist, so we do know that Western Areas is quite highly leveraged to that nickel price, and nickel prices are up about 30% since the start of the year. So we do expect those supply risks to persist, as well as sort of a recovery over in the US and Europe, which is all going to assist the long-term performance for Western Areas. So we do certainly like the outlook on it. Being a pure play nickel producer, we do think it is highly leveraged, and certainly if we do see these nickel prices remaining at these high levels, we could potentially see some further development in the stock as well.
All right, let's talk Crown Resorts today. Of course, we've had the news that Packer wants to enter Las Vegas again. Obviously, he's tried before. What do you make of this move, and how are shareholders responding to this? The stock down about 1% now.
The stock is down, and sort of investors not reacting so well. Seeing a little bit of a negative performance. I do suspect investors are looking at this as a bit risky. We do know that, as you say, he has looked to enter the Las Vegas market before and has failed. So I suppose they, you know, entering these uncharted waters, there is a little bit of risk around in terms of how this is all going to pan out. But in our mind, it does look fairly positive. It does look like a fairly good opportunity. We know that they've partnered up with a local sort of knowledge in Andrew Pascal. We know he's the former COO of Wynn Las Vegas, so that looks pretty positive. Of course, they've also acquired quite a good piece of land, that vacant bit of land that they will be developing on as well. So certainly a few things you know, are adding up for them, and it potentially does look like a good opportunity. But as I say, I think investors probably concerned about the risks involved and potentially the costs as well. But overall, we do think it, you know, it does build on some of their success successful casinos that we are seeing in place across Australia, Macau, and of course London as well. In Australia recently, we know that they got that final approval for the second casino over here in Sydney, and of course that gaming licence, which is due to start in November 2019. And of course over in Macau, we do think that they are going to be a major beneficiary of some sort of increased demand or growing demand in terms of Asian wealth across Macau, and of course over here in Australia as well, in terms of increased tourism from that Asian market. So certainly building on a lot of their successful businesses that they do have in place already. I suppose we'll have to wait and see how this one goes, but unfortunately investors sort of reacting a little bit negatively to that one today.
All right, Leanne Jones, thanks so much for your time today.
Thanks, Ingrid.